Hey Valley, this is a G67 1.6a mini tutorial, 1.6ab, sorry. Just going over, this is multiplying and dividing positive and negative integers. So remember that if you have an even number of negative signs, an even number is going to equal a positive answer. And if you have an odd number of negative signs when multiplying or dividing, that's going to be a negative answer. That's kind of your key up there. All right, so I just do the fact 9 times 8 is 72. I've got an even number of a negative sign, so that's going to be a positive answer. Here's 7 times 13, so 7 times 10 would be 70. 7 times 3 is 21, so I have 91 as my answer, and I've got 2 negative signs, so that's going to be a positive answer. Right here, I got 15 times 3, which is 45. I've got 1 negative sign, so that's an odd number, so that's going to be a negative 45. So let me double check. Even number, positive answer. Odd number, odd negative answer. Even number, positive answer. Let's carry that down into something a little bit more challenging when we have to do sometimes 3. So 5 times 2, well, this is a negative times a positive, so that's going to give me a negative 10 times a negative 7. Well, 7 times 10 is going to be 70, and that's going to be positive because now you've got 2 negatives. And you can mix those numbers around and do the negatives first if you want, but I just went straight across. 2 negatives are going to give you a total of positive here. All right, so this is a little more difficult here. This one here, everybody thinks, they get confused on this one. This one actually means take everything that's inside those parentheses and multiply it by everything that's inside those parentheses. So you have a negative 10 times a negative 10. Well, 10 times 10 is 100, and you have 2 negatives, that's a positive. All right, I'm going to cross off this problem and put another problem in. Negative 10 squared, like that. Now notice the exponent is inside. Well, you go inside the parentheses, and you have 100. And you still have that negative there. Notice the difference? Because the exponent is outside the parentheses, you multiply it by everything inside. Inside the parentheses, do the 10 times 10, and then there's the negative. So these are 2 landmark problems here kids constantly get wrong. I'm going to go over it one more time before we're done. So this is 4 to the negative third, or negative 4 to the third. So that literally means negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. This is going to be positive 16 if you multiply those 2 times a negative 4. This is going to give me a negative 64. And that makes sense. You have 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64, and you have 3 negative signs. Most of you guys aren't going to want to write all this out. I write it all out, and I get them right every time. So I'm begging you. Follow my lead on that one. All right, I'm going to slide down here a little bit. I'll come back, don't worry. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and you've got 1 negative sign. So it's a negative 5. Did you notice that? Just do the fact, determine odd or even. And if it's an odd number, it's going to be a negative answer. It's just like multiplying, the division ones are. Here's another one, 48 divided by 16. Well, that's 3. How many negative signs? 1. So it's got to be a negative 3. All right, here are 2 problems here that are challenging. I'm going to go ahead and do these through. They look like they're the exact same problem. They are, with the exception of the placement of the exponent. So I got to write all these out what this means. So this actually means a negative 1 times, and now it's inside, right? So I have to do 4 squared, which is 16. And it's a negative 16 because that's inside. I have to do the exponent first. And then I have to add 2 times a negative 8, which is a negative 16. Okay, so now I've got this here. I've got negative 1 times a negative 16. Well, that's actually a positive 16, correct? 1 times 16 is 16. 2 negatives make a positive. Plus a negative 16. This equals 0. Again, when the exponent is inside, you go into the exponents inside the parentheses. You do the exponent first, and then you add in that negative. All right, let's do this problem here. Notice that it's outside. We should get a different answer. All right, so this negative out here is like a negative 1. And now I've got negative 4, and the whole thing is squared. So this is really negative 4 times a negative 4. And this is plus, still a plus a negative 16. I can do that one. Whoops, I ran out my paper there. You can see that's a negative 16. Looks pretty ugly, but I'll rewrite it in the next line. Okay, so this is going to give me a negative times a negative times a negative. This is going to give me a negative answer. This is going to be a negative 16 because 4 times 4 is 16 positive times that negative 1 is going to give me a negative 16 plus this negative 16 over here. So this one here is equal to a negative 32. All right, I'm going to zoom back out so you can see some other problems.